us off at number 10 is the White Lady of Balete Drive. In Quezon City, there's an avenue named after the row of trees that used to line it. Although they are now gone, in Filipino culture it is believed that balete trees are inhabited by mystical beings and other supernatural creatures, and despite their removal from the area, it is rumored to remain just as haunted as the day they were planted. There are few variations of the legend, but the most popular is that there was once a woman who died after being hit by a taxi along the balete-lined road late at night, and whoever hit her was never caught. Since then, it's said she haunts the roads, scaring unsuspecting taxi drivers who dare trespass alone. Some say she might even appear to be lost and wait for a taxi to pull over so she can come inside and terrify the driver by revealing her true form, a corpse covered in blood and bruises. However, others say sometimes she will just disappear out of thin air. Many have believed the tale, including a police officer and captain of the QCPD who was eventually suspended for cowardice after he refused to patrol the area after a rise in incidents. Allegedly, each accident claimed that a woman in white was what had caused the issue, and so the officer refused to investigate, fearing he too would become haunted by the White Lady of Balete Drive. Next up at number 9 is death by slippers. I've heard some crazy urban legends in my day, and this one might just be the most out there. Apparently, there's an urban legend in the Philippines that states you must bring your slippers inside the house at night. Why is that, I'm sure you're wondering? Well, according to the legend, anyone who forgets to bring their slippers in at night will be visited by a dangerous cult that takes the slippers and kills the owner. Apparently, each night a group of Satanists roam the streets looking for victims to sacrifice to their evil overlord, and apparently the only thing you have to do to protect yourself from being their next victim is bring your shoes inside at the end of the day. Okay. Listen, I'm not saying it couldn't be real, but I am saying this sounds a lot like something a really tired parent might say to make sure that their kids didn't leave all their stuff lying around outside. Either way, if I am ever in the Philippines, you best believe I'll be bringing my slippers inside, because I'm not about to tempt fate and accidentally get killed by an evil Satanist cult. Next up at number 8, the tikbalang. Said to lurk in the mountains and rainforests of the Philippines, the tikbalang is a tall, bony, humanoid creature with the head and hooves of a horse. To me, it kind of resembles a half-transformed werewolf meets centaur, which is just straight up terrifying. Although legends differ from region to region, in the north it most commonly enjoys pranking travelers and making them hallucinate so that they get lost along the path. But in the south, its origins are much darker. Down south, stories of the tikbalang speak of an evil, red-eyed demon horse prone to fits of rage and continuously puffing on a cigar. It's said to be the result of a soul that did not make it out of the womb. Without having ever existed on the earthly plane in human form, it now haunts this realm, preying on the living as revenge. According to the myth, however, all you need to do to defeat this terrifying demon horse is pluck 3 hairs from its mane, taming the creature and making it indebted to you forever. That, or just hope you come across one in the north, I guess. Next up at number 7, the matrikulan. These terrifying creatures are kind of like the sick and twisted version of the Immaculate Conception. As legend has it, at night when everyone is asleep, they will sneak into the room of a virgin woman and impregnate her without her knowing. Apparently the ghoul is invisible to the human eye, so there's no way to protect against their devilish advances. Then after a few months inside, the monster will return to take what he gave to the woman, but first killing her and then consuming the life that was growing inside of her. There are also some versions where the matrikulan will prey on already pregnant women, and in this case, it's believed that the husband can protect his wife from getting a visit from the creature by swinging a butterfly knife, or balisang, over her stomach during labor. I mean, from top to bottom, this entire legend is incredibly dark, and I'm just praying that there is no chance they exist in real life. Next up at number 6 is the chanak. It's very common in many cultures and religions for new lives to be baptized, mainly because it signifies the young person as being a part of the Christian faith, and it symbolizes a life in devotion to Jesus Christ, and And while some cultures believe it's not necessary to be baptized in order to get into heaven, it's definitely the preferred method. But due to the Spanish colonization in the Philippines in the 16th century, their version is a bit more intense. As the story goes, many believe that any souls who are not baptized by the Catholic Church in their early years go into a state of limbo after death and will return to earth as evil spirits. These spirits are called the Chanak and are said to lure their prey deep into the woods, tricking them by shape-shifting to look like a little one abandoned and crying. Once they are picked up and have the victims right where they want them, the vampiric creatures will morph back into their true devilish form and attack. The only way to save yourself is either turn your clothes on inside out in hopes that the Chanak will be amused and set you free of the enchantment. That or some garlic and a rosary can also do the trick in most cases. Coming in at number 5, the Mamba Barang. A terrifying Filipino folklore witch, the Mamba Barang uses their powers to get revenge on those they feel have either wronged them or those who they are envious of. As legend has it, the Mamba Barang will use their evil powers in order to conjure spirits and manipulate insects to enter the body of any person they choose, most often through voodoo rituals. What is scary about the Mamba Barang is that they're not some evil demon or mythical creature, but just some ordinary human woman who practices black magic, and once they decide to conjure a spell on you, there is not much of anything that can be done to stop it. Once the ritual has been completed, she will instruct the insects who it is they are to infest, and they will climb inside the body using any orifice required. There is often pain at the site of entry, for example an intense earache if they go through the ear, or even hemorrhoids if they use the south door. But these are not like other diseases. They will resist all known treatment. In fact, there are no known medicines or cures for any of the afflictions caused by the witch. The only way to be freed of the torment is to hope that the witch allows the infestation of bugs to leave your body. Otherwise, you're fresh out of luck. In most cases, the torture will continue until it takes your life, and only then will the horde of bugs evacuate your body. Coming in at number 4, the Amalaneg. Said to be the Filipino version of a half-zombie, half-vampire, the Amalaneg is an undead demon that is believed to not have transferred its power to a relative during their time of death. This results in the demons rising from their graves so that they can lurk in the woods, feasting on the blood of the nearby villagers. Their preferred method of attack is usually believed to be through biting the neck, since, you know, vampires and all. However, there are some versions of the legend that state they will tickle the victim to death while simultaneously absorbing their life force. I mean, if I had to pick a way to go, this sounds better than being stabbed and left to slowly bleed out, no? Well, I do also hate being tickled, so I don't know, maybe not. It all really depends on how long it would take for me to be drained of all my life force, I guess. The good news is that you can escape them should you ever find yourself face to face with these demons. It's advised that you climb up a tree or jump into the closest body of water, as they're unable to climb and they have a great fear of water as it will turn them into a pile of worms. Next up at number 3, the Manananggal. Said to be a vicious, flesh-eating, blood-sucking demon, the Manananggal is definitely one of the creepiest urban legends I've ever heard of. In their true form, they're described as being hideous women who have the ability to sever their body into two, something that they must apparently do in order to feed. When they detach their torso from their lower half, they become vulnerable, so they must hide their lower half to keep themselves from being attacked. They then grow wings so that they can fly around looking for their next victim. The Manananggal tends to prey on men, first shapeshifting to look like a beautiful woman so that they can seduce them before luring them into a secluded area, tearing them apart and sucking out all of their internal organs with their long tongue. The only way to defeat the ghoulish creature is to wait until her body is severed, as the lower half remains motionless and vulnerable. Once you find the lower half, sprinkle either salt or crushed garlic onto the creature, and the demon will be unable to join back into one entity. Then just sit back and wait until sunrise, as once the sun hits the separate torso, she will be destroyed. Coming in at number 2, the Aswang. This one might be the most famous of the urban legends, but to be fair, it's yes, for good reason, cause it is just about the most terrifying thing I have ever read about. Supposedly a flesh-eating, shape-shifting, vampire-like creature, what's truly terrifying about the Aswang is that you never know who around you could be one. As the legend goes, during the day they appear to be just like us humans, blending in with the world and working normal jobs, but at night they transform into flesh-eating, blood-sucking horror film creatures who unleash their predatory instincts, actively hunting the most vulnerable in the community. The creatures are said to have long tongues and backwards feet, and are apparently so thin and frail they can hide behind a single piece of bamboo. But don't be fooled by their small frame, as if they attack, there is no saving you. What's scariest about them though is their ability to transform the appearance of other objects too. In order to avoid suspicion, they are known to use plant matter to create a doppelganger of their victim's corpse in order to hide their feeding habits and fool the locals into thinking they died of another cause. The only way to repel the dreadful creature is with garlic or religious artifacts, particularly used against them during the day as they are weakest in their human form. Then once you have them at their weakest, you can kill the monster by decapitating it. And last up in our number 1 spot, Encantos. Often associated with the spirits of ancestors in the Philippines, Encantos are kind of a catch-all term for a few different mythical creatures, but are most commonly linked to fairies. Now, if you have only ever watched animated fairies from your favorite childhood shows your whole life, and you're wondering what the heck these creatures are doing on a scary list, well then my friend, you have got to learn a little bit more about fae and the terrifying things they are capable of. When it comes to Encantos in particular, their motives are almost backwards to many other ghouls, as if they don't like you, they are rumored to inflict deadly disease, mental illness, or even gain complete possession of their human target. But if they've become smitten with a human, they will sometimes opt to bring them good luck, or they might just kidnap you and bring them into their realm forever. It's said you can try to ward them off by carrying a magical charm or an amulet, but once they have their sights set on you, either good or bad, it is hard to keep them away forever. Although the mythical belief in the Encantos may have originated as folklore, it has also been theorized that the fair-skinned fairies were actually created as a metaphor for the Spanish friars who colonized the Philippines, often abducting and taking advantage of the young Filipino women in the woods. So considering they're based off of real people, you don't get much scarier than that.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Headless Ghost Miner. According to the legend, deep in the remote wilderness of Yukon, there once was a thriving mining town. In the late 1800s, tragedy struck when a miner lost his head in a horrific accident deep within the mine shaft. The incident left the town in shock, and the legend of the Headless Ghost Miner was born. Locals claim to this day the spirit of the miner roams the abandoned mining town, searching for his lost head. Witnesses report encountering a spectral figure dressed in tattered mining gear, carrying a flickering lantern. Despite the absence of a head, the ghostly miner emits blood-curdling screams that echo through the night. Those who have crossed paths with the Headless Ghost Miner speak of an overwhelming sense of dread and an intense feeling of being watched. Some claim to have witnessed the miner's lantern light flicker and heard his disembodied voice calling out for help. The legend has been passed down through generations, warning people to stay away from the haunted mining town after dark. Whether the legend is rooted in real tragedy or fueled by the imagination of storytellers, the tale of the Headless Ghost Miner continues to send shivers down the spines of those who venture into the desolate reaches of Yukon's wilderness. In our number 9 spot today, we have the ghost train of Stony Trail. Located on the outskirts of Calgary in Alberta, Stony Trail is a popular highway that encircles the city. According to the legend, late at night, a ghostly train can be seen and heard traveling alongside the highway, even though there are no train tracks in the vicinity. Witnesses claim that the apparition of an old-fashioned train, complete with smoke billowing from its stack and the sound of its whistle, appears out of nowhere and follows the path of Stony Trail for a short distance before vanishing into thin air. Some even report feeling a chill in the air and a sense of unease when encountering the ghost train. There are various theories surrounding the origins of this paranormal phenomenon, phenomenon. One popular belief is that the ghostly train is a residual haunting, a recording of past events imprinting on the surrounding environment. According to local lore, a train derailed in the area decades ago, resulting in multiple fatalities. It is said that the spirits of the deceased continue to haunt the land, manifesting as the ghost train. Whether the sightings are the result of overactive imaginations, optical illusions, or actual paranormal activity, the legend of the ghost train of Stony Trail continues to intrigue and captivate those who travel along the highway late at night, reminding them that the boundary between the living and the supernatural may not be as distinct as it seems. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Grey Man. According to the legend, the Grey Man is a spectral figure that haunts the vast prairies and desolate stretches of land in Saskatchewan. The Grey Man is described as a tall and shadowy figure wearing a long, tattered coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscures his face. He is often seen wandering aimlessly in remote areas, appearing and disappearing mysteriously. The legend suggests that encountering the Grey Man brings a profound sense of unease and foreboding to those who witness him. Locals and travelers claim to have seen the Grey Man in various locations across the province, particularly in isolated rural areas and near abandoned homesteads. Witnesses describe feeling an overwhelming sense of being watched or followed, and some have even reported hearing disembodied whispers or the sound of footsteps when there is no one around. The origins of the Grey Man legend are shrouded in mystery. Some speculate that he may be the ghost of a lost soul or a restless spirit bound to the land. Others believe that he serves as a warning or a harbinger of impending doom. The legend of the Grey Man adds a very eerie and supernatural element to Saskatchewan's expansive and secluded landscapes. It continues to intrigue and unsettle those who venture into the remote corners of the province, perpetuating the fascination with the unknown and the paranormal in Saskatchewan folklore. Whether the Grey Man is a figment of imagination or a genuine spectral entity, his legend continues to captivate the imagination of locals and visitors alike. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a creature you may have heard of before, and they are a creature deeply rooted in Indigenous folklore and is said to roam the wilderness of Manitoba. According to legend, the Wendigo is a malevolent spirit or entity that takes the form of a gaunt and emaciated creature. It is often depicted as towering in stature with sunken eyes, long limbs, and antler-like protrusions from its head. The Wendigo is said to be driven by insatiable hunger and an unquenchable desire for human flesh. The legend warns that those who venture into the remote forests of Manitoba may encounter the Wendigo. It is believed that the creature possesses humans, driving them to madness and human consumption. The Wendigo is said to embody the darkest aspects of human greed and gluttony, and the origins of the Wendigo legend are deeply rooted in the folklore of the Indigenous peoples of the region, particularly the Algonquin tribes. The story serves as a cautionary tale warning against the dangers of selfishness and the consequences of succumbing to one's primal desires. The legend of the Wendigo continues to captivate the imagination and instill fear in those who venture into the wilderness of Manitoba. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Ghostly Hitchhiker of Blue Ghost Tunnel. Located in Thorold near Welland Canal here in Ontario, the Blue Ghost Tunnel is an abandoned railway tunnel with a reputation for being haunted. As the legend goes, the Ghostly Hitchhiker is said to be a young woman who tragically lost her life in the tunnel many years ago. According to the stories, the Ghostly Hitchhiker is often seen standing near the entrance of the tunnel, dressed in outdated clothing. She appears as a spectral figure, pale and ethereal, emitting an eerie blue glow, hence the name Blue Ghost Tunnel. Legend has it that the Ghostly Hitchhiker is known to wander the nearby roads, seemingly seeking a ride. Those who have encountered her claim that she vanishes without a trace once they approach or attempt to interact with her. The Blue Ghost Tunnel itself adds to the mystique surrounding this legend. It has a dark and eerie atmosphere with reports of strange sounds, apparitions, and an overall feeling of unease among those who venture inside. The legend has captivated the imaginations of locals and paranormal enthusiasts, drawing visitors to the tunnel in search of ghostly encounters and supernatural experiences. Whether it's a tale born from tragedy, folklore, or simply a product of people's vivid imaginations, the legend of the Ghostly Ghostly Hitchhiker of Blue Ghost Tunnel adds an air of mystery and spookiness to Ontario's urban legends. In our number 5 spot today, we have the ghost ship of Northumberland Strait. According to legend, residents of Nova Scotia's Northumberland Strait have reported sightings of a mysterious phantom ship sailing the waters under the cover of night. The ship is said to be a spectral vessel glowing with an otherworldly light and surrounded by an eerie aura. The sightings often describe the ship as an old, weathered vessel with tattered sails billowing in the wind. Witnesses claim that the ship appears and disappears without a trace, leaving no sign of its presence or destination. The ghost ship of Northumberland Strait is believed to be a vessel lost at sea, doomed to wander the waters for eternity. Some versions of the legend suggest that the ship carries the restless spirits of sailors who perished in a tragic maritime accident. Local fishermen and sailors have shared chilling accounts of encountering the ghost ship, describing a bone-chilling silence and a very unsettling feeling of being watched as the phantom vessel passes by. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Ghost Bride of St. John. Legend has it that in the late 19th century, a young bride was preparing for her wedding day in St. John, New Brunswick. Tragically, on the day of her wedding, the bride's groom-to-be perished in a shipwreck off the treacherous Bay of Fundy. Heartbroken and devastated, the bride decided to take her own life by jumping off of a cliff into the turbulent waters below. Since then, locals claim to have witnessed this ghostly apparition of a veiled bride wandering near the cliffs overlooking the bay. She is said to appear in a flowing white wedding gown, her face hidden by a very sheer veil. Some have reported hearing her mournful cries or the faint sound of wedding bells carried by the wind. According to the legend, the ghost bride is forever trapped in a state of sorrow and longing, doomed to wander the cliffs in search of her lost love. Some believe that encountering the ghost bride is an omen of misfortune and impending tragedy. The story of the Ghost Bride of St. John's has become an enduring part of New Brunswick's folklore, captivating locals and visitors alike. In our number 3 spot today, we have Ogopogo. The legend of Ogopogo is one of the most famous urban legends in British Columbia, Canada, particularly centered around the Okanagan Lake in the interior of the province. Ogopogo is believed to be a serpentine lake monster resembling a giant sea serpent or a prehistoric creature that inhabits the depths of the lake. According to indigenous legends, the Silks people have long revered Ogopogo as a powerful water spirit or guardian of the lake. The name Ogopogo is derived from the Salish word meaning water demon. It is said to have a long body, dark greenish-brown scales, and a serpentine head, often described as resembling a cross between a snake and a dinosaur. Over the years, numerous eyewitness accounts and alleged sightings have added to the lore surrounding Ogopogo. Witnesses claim to have seen humps, a snake-like creature, or large disturbances in the water suggestive of a large unknown creature swimming beneath the surface. Some accounts even describe Ogopogo emerging partially from the water, resembling a massive serpent. The legend of Ogopogo has attracted enthusiasts, researchers, and skeptics alike. Various expeditions, sonar scans, and photographic investigations have been conducted in an attempt to capture evidence of the creature's existence. The legend continues to thrive through books, artwork, festivals, and the ongoing fascination with this mysterious lake monster. Whether Ogopogo is a mythical creature, a misidentification of known animals, or an actual remnant from a bygone era, the legend persists, adding a touch of mystery and wonder to the beautiful Okanagan region and its majestic lake. In our number 2 spot today, we have the haunting of Beaconsfield Historic House. Beaconsfield Historic House, located in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, is a Victorian mansion with a rich history. According to local tales, the house is haunted by the spirit of a former resident, a young woman named Lucy Maud Montgomery. Montgomery, renowned as the author of the famous novel Anne of Green Gables, is said to have had a deep connection with the house during her time there. Visitors and staff have reported strange occurrences within the house, including unexplained footsteps, doors opening and closing on their own, and the sound of disembodied laughter echoing through the halls. Some have even claimed to catch glimpses of a ghostly figure resembling Montgomery herself. Many believe that Montgomery's lingering spirit continues to reside within Beaconsfield House, perhaps drawn by the memories and inspiration it holds. The ghostly tales surrounding this historic house have captivated locals and visitors alike, adding an eerie charm to its already compelling history. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Devil's Footprints. Story goes that one winter's night, a small coastal community in Newfoundland and Labrador woke up to find a peculiar set of footprints in the freshly fallen snow. The footprints were incredibly large and hoof-like in shape, leaving the villagers perplexed and fearful. The tracks stretched across rooftops, gardens, and even crossed over bodies of water, defying the laws of nature. Terrified, the townspeople believed that the tracks were the work of the devil himself. They believed that the devil had come to their village to wreak havoc and spread fear among them. Some claimed to have heard eerie laughter in the distance or witnessed strange lights in the sky, accompanying the appearance of the footprints. As word spread, similar sightings of the devil's footprints were reported in neighboring communities, intensifying the fear and intrigue surrounding the legend. Many attempted to follow the tracks, but they always seemed to vanish mysteriously, leaving no trace behind. To this day, the legend of the devil's footprints remains a chilling mystery in the province. Some attribute the phenomenon to natural causes like unusual weather patterns or hoaxes, while others believe it to be the work of supernatural forces. Regardless of its origins, the legend continues to captivate the imaginations of locals and visitors alike, reminding them of the mysterious and otherworldly aspects of the region's folklore.
Starting us off at number 10, Yoga Barbie. So before I get into this one, I'm gonna start off by saying that I have to believe whoever posted this to Reddit is someone playing a prank. Not because it's terribly scary, but because I have a very hard time believing that someone could actually feel this way. But that being said, when it comes to urban legends, the more insane the better. Anyways, back to the point. This first evil urban legend was posted to Reddit by an uber religious influencer that seems to vehemently believe that the Breathe With Me Yoga Barbie is a gateway to being possessed by the devil. Now, listen, I of all people understand being a little spooked out by dolls, but it's the reasoning behind this one that gets me. Let me just read you a bit of what they had to say. Quote, "Satan always comes as appearing innocent. He will never come with horns and a pitchfork. This Barbie teaches you deep breathing. Satan is after the young people of the world and he wants to use them and indoctrinate them for his glory. You cannot separate the poses from the religion. Each pose is designed to invoke a Hindu deity in the spirit realm. I have seen children get possessed by demons," essentially stating that all these Breathe With Me Barbies are vehicles for Satan, and that each and every last one will allow young people to be easily possessed by the devil because apparently yoga is satanic? I have many questions. Coming in at number 9, Original Barbie. The original Barbie, iconically dressed in her white and black bathing suit, debuted in 1959 and started a doll revolution that has not once died down in nearly 65 years. Now, for those who might not know, Barbie was created by a woman named Ruth Handler, along with her husband, and the dolls were modeled after the controversial Build Lily doll, who were, let's just say, not meant to be marketed towards kids. Now, that piece aside, Barbie dolls were 100% created for young people. In fact, Barbie, short for Barbara Millicent Roberts, was actually named after Ruth's daughter, and so she had a lifelong connection to her creation. And that is where this legend comes in. As the legend has it, this rare doll may be a bit more sinister than one might hope. Some say that after Ruth's death in 2002, her spirit clung onto the original creation, and that her ghost haunts it to this day. Which, you know, might not be the most evil thing on this list, but any haunted doll is creepy enough for me. Coming in at number 8, Ghost Barbie. In 2012, Mattel released the Ghost Barbie as part of their Haunted Beauty collection. Now I, for one, as I'm sure many of you are, am a big ol' fan of the Ookie Spooky, so at first glance, this doll seems pretty sweet. However, apparently there is a terrifying urban legend that is attached to her. Legend has it this doll is not just made to have a haunted aesthetic, but that she's actually just as terrifying as she appears on the outside. It's said that the doll feeds off the energy of the owner, and while she may be harmless when you first bring her home, eventually once she has drawn out enough energy from you, she will begin haunting you. Legend has it she will watch you sleep and move around your room at her own will, but most terrifying of all are the legends that state she can invade your dreams while you're asleep and possess you in your sleep. I mean, if that turns out to be true, that would put her up there with some of the most frightening dolls in the world. Coming in at number 7, Hello Barbie. In 2015, Mattel released their most technologically advanced Barbie yet, and life was less in plastic and fantastic and more an episode of Black Mirror. Essentially, the Hello Barbie was designed to be able to listen to conversations and then reply to their query with one of her 8,000 programmed responses. But legend has it, it was much more sinister than that. Because this Barbie connects to the internet, allegedly hackers were hijacking the dolls to spy on the young users and steal their information. So when these impressionable minds were talking to who they thought was just their new doll, it could have been some creepy hacker guy who was trying to sell off their info. Or honestly, even worse. Plus, reportedly, the data that this doll collected was sent back to Mattel, and legend has it that Mattel would sell the data to third parties. I mean, top to bottom, it's icky, and it might only be an urban legend, but it would be so creepy if this ended up to be true. Coming in at number 6, Barbie Forest. So while it wasn't my personal experience to do so, I know a lot of kids used to rip the heads or limbs off of their Barbies when they were younger, and this is a legend that surrounds this very pastime. Legend has it a man was taking a relaxing morning walk one day when he accidentally stumbled across a forest that was filled with dirty old Barbie heads hanging from the trees, while their legs, arms, and torsos were scattered across the forest floor. At first he assumed it was just some kids goofing around, but shortly after stepping foot in the woods, he began to hear the laughter of a girl behind him, and every time he turned around, she was nowhere to be seen. Now, where exactly this creepy Barbie doll head forest is meant to be is unclear, but I for one will be running away as fast as I can if I ever stumble upon it. Coming in at number 5, Haunted Barbie. As the legend goes, during World War I, there was a family of German spies hiding out in the British-occupied Singapore. One day the British Army found the family and captured the parents, however the daughter managed to escape. Tragically, however, during the escape she fell from a cliff and died. Shortly after she was found, the townspeople built a shrine in her honor, and for years it remained nothing more than a tragic story. That was until 2007 when a local man who began having haunting dreams of a German girl leading him towards a toy store where there was a Barbie in the window, and from there the girl told him to bring the Barbie to her shrine at the cliff. Now, people have weird dreams all the time, so he probably didn't think much of it at first, but after the 3rd night in a row of the same girl haunting his dream and insisting he bring her a Barbie, he skeptically followed the girl's instructions and purchased the Barbie as was requested. The doll remains at her shrine to this day, and some believe this doll is actually haunted by the girl's spirit. Coming in at number 4, Barbie Possession. There are tons of supposedly possessed dolls out there. I mean, there's Annabelle, Robert, and Letta, just to name a few, but wouldn't you know that a terrifying possessed Barbie is a part of that group as well. Legend has it that many years ago there was a young girl who loved her Barbie doll very much, but sadly she passed away suddenly in the night, shocking her entire family. Now, of course, at first the mother wasn't able to part with her newly passed daughter's belongings, and so they stayed in her room for several months. However, a few weeks after the girl had died, her mother began noticing something strange was going on with her beloved Barbie. She would walk past the allegedly empty room at night, only to hear her deceased daughter's laughter clear as day. Other times she could swear that she had last seen it in one place, only to have it turn up at another end of the house. Eventually she became convinced that her late daughter had possessed the doll, and so she began to care for it, often bathing it, brushing her hair, tucking her in at night, and talking to her. Now, I mean, this story is kind of sweet, but it's also kind of creepy too, cause we all know dolls can be sneaky, so while it may have been possessed, there is no way of knowing by who or what. Coming in at number 3, Demon Barbie. This legend surrounds a girl who picked out a Barbie doll that should never have made it onto the shelves in the first place. As the story goes, one day a mother and father took their daughter to the store to buy a new Barbie for her birthday. Pretty normal so far. However, when they got to the store, they couldn't help but notice that one Barbie stuck out from the rest. And not in a good way. There on the shelves beside all the other Barbies was a strange Barbie with all black eyes. And despite trying their hardest to convince their daughter to pick a different one, in the end, unable to convince her otherwise, they brought it home assuming that it was probably just a manufacturing mistake. However, upon bringing it back home, they quickly realized this was no ordinary Barbie. Their daughter became almost instantly attached to the doll, and not in a normal way. It said she refused to go anywhere without the Barbie, even from room to room, and that she was often found talking to it in a strange voice that didn't sound like her own. They were already beginning to regret their decision, and then the girl started to become violently ill, and so convinced it was the doll, they stole it from her in the night and burned it. The next day, like magic, the girl was healthy. I mean, I don't know about you, but that definitely sounds like some demon shenanigans if you ask me. Coming in at number 2, Spying Barbie. This one comes from Reddit, and it's less about a terrifying Barbie and more so just a super creepy story involving a Barbie. As Reddit user explains, when they were younger, they used to frequently play with their neighbor next door. Now, they mentioned at first they thought this girl was a little off, but they didn't really have any other options. Anyway, one day they went over and the girl asked if they could play a scavenger hunt, and so Reddit user said, sure. The girl hands them a clue that sends them to another room, they then find the next clue, and so on, until finally the second to last clue leads them back to the original room they started in, which seemed strange. They find the final clue and it says to go to where the Barbie is and find the bump on its head, and so they did. However, once they found the Barbie, they saw the bump on her head was a camera, and beside her was a note that read, "Daddy watches me and he's trying to kill me." Terrified, Reddit friend ran downstairs to tell the mom what they found, but was instead thrown out of the house for being disrespectful and told they could never return. Reddit friend immediately told their own mother what they found, but being a little kid and all, wasn't really believed, until a few days later when the neighbor girl who had tried to warn someone was found dead. And last up in our number 1 spot, Barbie Girl. If you have spent some time on the internet, you've probably come across several out there people who have what one might call an unhealthy obsession with Barbie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a girly Barbie moment, but there has to be a line, and that line should probably stop long before we get to anything illegal. This next legend is likely one of the most disturbing things I have ever read about, and it surrounds a psychopath man. As the legend goes, there was once a guy who was so obsessed with Barbies that he decided to turn his basement into a real-life Barbie dream house. Except it was far from a dream. It said he would lure women into his basement and then kill them before turning their corpses into life-size versions of the doll, and from there he would spend his days playing with them. Now, I can only assume that there was also some intense perversion that paired with this, cause you can't convince me that he was just wanting to play with these dolls innocently. Like, there's just no way. Now again, this is an urban legend, so who knows the validity behind this all, but we also know of legit documented killers who had done stuff like this. So, I mean, it's honestly just another reason to not go into a stranger's basement.
Originating in the folklore of Scandinavia, particularly Norway and Sweden, the Ganganger is believed to be the embodiment of a deceased individual who returns from the grave to haunt the living. These spectral beings typically manifest with a pale complexion, dressed in tattered burial garments. They're often associated with unfinished business or unresolved grievances, seeking retribution resolution or closure. It kind of sounds like a normal ghost, but they actually are very, very different. Legend has it that encountering one of these beings brings great misfortune and even death to those who cross its path. Instead of just appearing in the background of photographs or whispering incoherent sentences into spirit boxes like your regular old vanilla ghosts, the Ganger are malicious spirits that can actually cause physical harm. The mere sight of these spectral beings is said to invoke a profound sense of dread and foreboding, as they are believed to possess this malevolent intent, even towards loved ones. Efforts to ward off or appease one of these beings have been present in Scandinavian folklore for centuries. Traditional rituals like offering prayers, performing protective charms, or conducting burial rites were believed to provide some defense against their haunting presence. At number 9, we have A Letter from a Blind Man. This one is short, but man, is it chilling. A dark tale that began circulating just after one of the darkest periods in modern history. In post-World War II in Berlin, a time plagued by scarcity, poverty, and hunger, a tale spoke of a young woman who encountered a blind man navigating his way through a bustling crowd. The two ended up striking a conversation, leading the man to ask if she could deliver a letter to the specified address on the envelope for him. Considering it was conveniently on her route home, she agreed to help. As she turned to walk away, though, she craned her head back momentarily to see if there was anything else she could assist the blind man with, and to her astonishment, she caught sight of him hastily making his way through the crowd without his dark glasses or his white cane. Understandably, she was pretty suspicious at this point and headed over to report the incident to the authorities. The police swiftly raided the address mentioned in the letter, where they uncovered a gruesome discovery. In the home were piles of human flesh intended for sale, and within the envelope entrusted to the young woman was a chilling message that read, "This is the last one I'm sending you today." The Beast of Gevaudan, terrifying creature's tale, has become a blend of fact, fiction, and folklore. The legend speaks of a monstrous beast that haunted the rural landscape of Gevaudan, a region in south-central France, during the mid-18th century. According to the stories, the creature possessed an insatiable appetite for human flesh, targeting women and children as its preferred victims. Descriptions varied, but many accounts depicted a fearsome creature resembling a massive-sized wolf or a hybrid predator, possibly with blood-red eyes and a black stripe running down its back. Its ruthless attacks, coupled with its supposed invincibility against conventional weaponry, left the people in a state of dread and desperation, and as the legend grew, so did the attempts to bring an end to the creature's reign of terror. Countless hunters, soldiers, and villagers embarked on these journeys to track down and take out the beast, yet the creature thwarted their efforts time and time again, evading traps, bullets, and even organized hunts. The legend reached its climax when a local hunter named Jean Chastel claimed to have slain the beast using a silver bullet. Over the years, the legend of the Beast of Gevaudan has been dissected by historians, mythologists, and enthusiasts, giving rise to various theories about the true nature of the creature. And apparently this did happen, it's just we're not quite sure if it was some sort of paranormal creature, like a werewolf, or if it was just a particularly large rogue wolf. Number 7, The Well to Hell. The Well to Hell urban legend was spread through whispers, emails, and internet forums. According to the legend, in 1989, a team of Russian scientists drilled a hole deep in an unknown location in Siberia, and as they delved deeper into the Earth's crust, they allegedly pierced a barrier that unleashed unimaginable horrors. The story goes that as the drill reached an astonishing depth, the temperature spiked dramatically and strange sounds began emanating from the hole. The team lowered a heat-tolerant microphone down into the hole, and disturbingly, the team claimed to have detected agonizing screams of tormented souls and eerie demonic voices rising from the depths. Terrified, they quickly withdrew the drill, fearing that they had inadvertently opened a gateway to hell itself. There is an audio recording of this supposed hellish audio, and spoiler alert, it's been ruled as a hoax. However, it is pretty unsettling to listen to. I remember hearing this years and years ago when I was a kid, and it kind of freaked me out. Next on the list, we have The Faceless Woman. This story takes place in the London Underground at Beacon Tree Station. The story goes that a station supervisor was working the late shift, minding his own business, when the door to his office started to shake. First, he just brushed it off, thinking it was just the rumble of passing trains on other lines, but when the door didn't stop rattling, even into the wee hours of the morning when no more trains were running, the worker decided probably time to leave. He headed up to the upper office where his coworker was stationed, and as he was making his way up the staircase, he just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Someone was trailing behind him. He turned around and was greeted by a disturbing sight. A woman stood below him with long blonde hair and without a face, standing just a few feet away. He suddenly dashed up the stairs in a panic before finally finding safety in the top office. Once there, colleague could see the fear in his face before asking him, "Did you see a woman with long blonde hair and no face?" Next up is the Vanishing Hotel Room, aka the Vanishing Lady. This legend began circulating in the late 1800s, taking place in France. Like with most urban legends, there are multiple versions of the tale, but it goes something like this. A mother and daughter had recently arrived in Paris. They check into a hotel, but pretty soon the mother begins feeling ill, collapses. A doctor arrives who informs the daughter that her mother will need medicine. That can only be picked up at the other end of town. The daughter sets out to get the medicine, but when she returns to the hotel hours later, her mother is no longer there. In a panic, she asks the staff where her mother is, but they all claim not to know who she's talking about. According to them, the girl had arrived at the hotel on her own. In some versions of the story, the girl suffers a mental breakdown and ends up at a mental institution. In another version of the legend, it is revealed that the mother had actually died of the Black Plague, and the hotel tried to cover it up by disposing of her body and pretending like they'd never seen her in order to avoid bad publicity. At number 4, we have the Russian sleep experiment. This story began circulating online, and according to the chilling tale, in 1947, Soviet researchers conducted a classified experiment in which 5 subjects were kept awake for an extended period of time. The goal was to test the effects of sleep deprivation on human physiology and their mental state. Days turned into weeks, however. The subjects began to exhibit disturbing behavior. They became increasingly paranoid and delusional, plagued by hallucinations and exhibiting signs of extreme psychological distress. Desperate attempts to stay awake led to self-mutilation as they tore into their own flesh, driven to madness by their sleep-deprived states. The most horrifying twist and the legend comes when the researchers decided to release a gas into the chamber in order to induce sleep. However, instead of providing relief, the gas triggered a nightmarish frenzy of violence. The researchers entered the room only to find one man still standing. The bodies of the other 4 men, or at least what remained of them, lay strewn about the room. Next, we have another urban legend from the London Underground, the Crying Girl of King's Cross Station. In 1987, deep underground in the tunnels of the London subway at King's Cross Station, a fire had broken out. The fire took the lives of 31 people, and some say they still hear the wails and cries of the poor souls who lost their lives there, especially the crying woman. Late at night, when the platform is mostly deserted, some say they spot a woman dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, sobbing into the night, the echoes of her cries reverberating off the long, empty tunnels. When they go to approach her, though, she simply disappears. Coming in at number 2, we have the Black Volga. The urban legend of the Black Volga is a chilling tale that is circulated in various parts of the world, but particularly in Eastern Europe. According to the legend, a menacing black luxury car, often identified as a Volga sedan, prowls the streets at night, instilling fear in all who cross its path. The Black Volga is said to be driven by mysterious figures, frequently described as malevolent entities or agents of the supernatural. Witnesses claim that the vehicle appears seemingly out of nowhere, its engine roaring ominously as it glides silently through the darkness. The car's windows are tinted, hiding the occupants from view and shrouding their intentions in secrecy. Terrifying encounters with the Black Volga involve tales of kidnappings, disappearances, or even encounters with supernatural beings. Some versions of the legend suggest that the car is driven by vampires or other supernatural creatures preying on unsuspecting victims in the dead of night. Some have actually theorized that perhaps Polish secret police spread these more outlandish legends in order to invalidate claims of genuine kidnappings carried out by the government. And at number 1, we have the Catacombs video. Now, this video really does exist. It's just the person behind the camera who's never been identified, which has led to multiple theories about the circumstances of this case. Is it just a hoax, or was this actually a man who got lost in the catacombs, never to be seen again? This is one most of you have probably heard of, but it's a story that's always stuck with me. One that chilled me to the bone when I first heard about it and watched footage. The video is said to have been filmed in the early 90s, possibly 1993. In the black and white footage, we see a POV of the cameraman as he makes his way through the dark tunnels of the Paris catacombs. Soon though, his breathing begins to intensify and he picks up his pace, now running aimlessly through the tunnels until he finally drops his camera altogether. Continuing to run further into the darkness, the camera continues to record until the battery dies. The camera was found later on, and searches were made for this mysterious man, but no body was ever discovered.
Starting us off at number 10 is the Wendigo. Arguably the most well-known of the indigenous legends is that of the flesh-eating Wendigo from the Algonquin tribes of North America. Now, with any legend, there's always a few variants, but the widely told story is that the Wendigo was once a lost hunter roaming the woods, who during the cold winter was running out of food to eat. Hungry, cold, and alone, the man turned to one of the greatest misdeeds one could. He began to eat the flesh of another human. Not long after, he turned into a giant beast, satiated for flesh, and continued to haunt the woods, looking for lone travelers to devour. It's said that anyone can turn into a Wendigo, as it is merely a human possessed by evil spirits due to a sinful choice, most commonly eating flesh, but some believe selfishness or gluttony can also bring the beast forward. Most terrifying of all is that many believe it may be more than just a story. Between the 1800s to 1920s, there were countless alleged sightings of the man-eating monster, and even as recently as 2019, a group of hikers swear they saw one roaming in the woods, but as with all urban legend, no one has been able to come forward with enough concrete proof to prove it once and for all. Let's just hope they saw something else in the woods, cause this is one monster I would not want to come face to face with. Next up at number 9 are owls. As told by the Yakima people, there were once 5 sisters living in a cave. But these sisters were no normal humans, of course. They were witches who feasted on vile things like frogs, lizards, snakes, mice, and most cruel of all, they would feast on the flesh of people. Eventually there was a large battle between the villagers, and these witches were killed off one by one. The local tribespeople were overjoyed to have their evil presence diminishing. That was until the final sister died and left a curse behind her. As legend has it, the last sister drowned, and from her eyeball, all the owls of the world were created, and their spirits lived on through the owls, always watching and haunting any that passed by. In other stories like that of the Choctaw mythology, the owl deity is known as the Aishikitini, or the horned owl, and is believed to hunt men at night, only ever warning its prey with a blood-curdling screech right before your sudden death. Either Either way, I'm not sure I will ever be able to look at an owl the same again. Coming in at number 8, the Chindi. According to Navajo legend, the Chindi is the bad energy left behind by those who passed away. It's believed to be kind of like a ghost that is released from the human body on their last breath, and then it's everything that was bad about the person, sort of like the residue of what they were not able to bring into harmony. But what's scariest about the Chindi is that it can haunt the living. In fact, many believe that contact with the Chindi can cause illness or even death. Because of this, traditional Navajo practice always aimed to have death occur outdoors, hoping that it would give more space for the Chindi to leave and less room for it to attach to the living. If death occurred inside a house, that house was pretty much doomed and was believed to be eternally haunted by the Chindi, so it was customary to destroy the deceased possessions to reduce the chance of the Chindi lingering around and latching onto the living. One step further, traditionally you shouldn't even dare utter the name of whoever died so as not to tempt the Chindi to come near, for once it was close, you were likely the next one to go. Coming in at number 7 is the Adlet. Up in the icy Arctic lies a terrifying humanoid beast that's said to have the legs of a dog and the body of a person. The legend comes from the Inuit people and is said to be the product of a shocking union between a woman and a giant dog. As the story goes, there once was a woman who lived with her father and refused to marry any of the suitors he brought her way. Then after some time, she decided to marry a large dog with red and white spots. The woman was soon carrying the dog's offspring, and of their 10 kin, 5 were dogs and 5 were Adlet. Soon their young were hungry, but as their father did not hunt, it became the mother's father's job to provide for the household. He loaded up the family into a boat and carried them off to a small island, telling the dog to come and get meat daily. One day the wife hangs boots around her husband's neck to carry back the meat, but instead her father fills the boots with stones and the dog drowns. The mother is so angry that she orders her Adlet offspring to gnaw off her father's feet and hands, but in retaliation he cuts off one of her fingers. Afraid that he will kill her Adlets, she sends 5 of them across the ocean, but those that stayed behind with her turned into vicious human-eating monsters who were constantly at war with the Inuit people. I mean, top to bottom, it's all pretty wild. Coming in at number 6 are stick people. In the traditions of the Salish communities, there is a legend of large, hairy spirits named stick people who are said to haunt the forest of Western Canada. These monsters are said to be incredibly dangerous and capable of paralyzing, hypnotizing, or even causing insanity in those who dare cross them. But that isn't even the worst of it. In some stories told, these ghoulish creatures will prey on lonely wanderers, sometimes making eerie sounds to trick them before kidnapping, eating, or even taking advantage of their victims. And if you try to defend yourself, you will only make matters worse. It's said stick people do not take kindly to any kind of disrespect, no matter how unintentional, and if they perceive that you are trying to hurt them, either physically or emotionally, they will attack you with even more gruesome force. In fact, the Salish people are so terrified of these monsters that the actual name for them is practically unheard of, as saying their real name in public is seen as an act of provoking the creature. Because of this, they are typically only ever referred to by their English name, so as not to upset the deadly creature and send it looking for you. Coming in at number 5, skinwalkers. According to Navajo culture, the skinwalker is a terrifying and evil witch with the ability to shapeshift into a terrifying humanoid beast. What's interesting about the legend of the skinwalker is its connection to their views of magic itself. In Navajo culture, traditional healers were known as medicine men or women, and they learned both good and evil magic. At one time, all the witches were once medicine men or women who could not handle the responsibility, and so they began to use their magic for evil instead of good. It's said that once in their skinwalker form, they are nearly indestructible and will wreak havoc on farmers' livestock or the people in the village that cross their path, and can only be killed by a bullet or by a knife dipped in white ash. Overall, the legend surrounding the skinwalker is incredibly mysterious, and for good reason. The Navajo people are very reluctant to tell their story of the deadly creature to those outside their community. As you see, it's believed even mentioning a skinwalker in passing will attract bad luck and make their appearances more likely, potentially even attracting one to come near you. So they avoid speaking on it at all costs. With that in mind, maybe we should move on to the next one. I'm not here to attract an evil witch my way after all. Next up at number 4, the Uktena. There are many different cultures worldwide who have a tale of a giant serpent or dragon, but one of the scariest might be that of the Uktena. According to Cherokee legend, origins of the creature began long ago when the sun sent a sickness down to earth to kill all of its people, and so a man changed into a horned snake to try and kill the sun, but he failed. Next, a rattlesnake took a shot and succeeded. The Uktena was apparently so jealous and angry over his failure that his people began to feel afraid of him, so they banished him to the woods to live out his life in isolation. But of course, he was not entirely left alone. You see, most commonly the Uktena is described as being a dragon-like horned serpent creature with wings and a blazing diamond on its forehead. The blazing diamond, called Ulunsuti, and whoever can defeat the beast and win it may become the greatest warrior in the tribe. However, as legend has it, the diamond puts warriors into a trance, as it's so beautiful and so bright that warriors will run towards the monster instead of trying to escape. As the story goes, only one man has ever been able to fetch the diamond from the beast's forehead and live to tell the tale. Coming in at number 3, the Scaramouche. Mentioned in the legends of the Wabanaki, the Scaramouche is a terrifying ghost witch that will definitely give you nightmares. Said to be an evil sorcerer that refuses to stay among the dead, the evil Scaramouche will emerge at night taking the shape of a ball of light, stalking the open woods looking for humans to devour, as it is the only way to fight off mortality. Also, I just have to mention, how many paranormal stories have you heard where some strange orb of light was seen? Could it be that it was an evil flesh-eating sorcerer stalking them this whole time? I mean, if so, that would be terrifying. Despite their undead nature, they still have full control over their powers and are able to cast a curse on their victims, but some are more susceptible than others. For example, they're said to stalk unsuspecting victims, often those in grief, so funerals are often associated with the ghouls. They also prey on lone travelers, especially those that have been separated from their group in the woods, as they are more vulnerable this way. Since they retain their powers, there are no weapons that can be used against them. The only way to kill one of these demonic vampire witches is the same way witches were killed for centuries, by burning them. But let's just hope that you can get to them before they get to you. Next up at number 2 is the Kalupalik. Deep under the icy waters of the freezing Arctic is another creature from Inuit folklore, the incredibly terrifying half-human sea monster known as the Kalupalik. Described as slimy green-skinned humanoid creatures with long fingers, the scariest thing about these creatures is not how they look, but what they do. As the legend goes, the Kalupalik hides under the ice waiting for vulnerable young ones to be playing near the edge. It will then tap its green fingers on the ice or softly hum to lure its victim in close. Once they can reach their prey, they will snatch up the little one, placing it in their amotik, a parka worn by Inuit women with a built-in carrying pouch, and bring them down into their underwater lair and keep them forever. It's said they prey on the young as this halts their aging. The older the victim grows, the younger she gets. The greener her skin stays and the more lush her hair. While no one can know for sure, it is believed this origin was mostly used as a cautionary tale to keep little ones away from the edge of the ice, but you never really know how much truth could be involved. And last up in our number 1 spot today is the flying head. Most popular among the Iroquois Confederacy, or Haudenosaunee in their language, is the legend of the flying head. According to the legend, the flying head was exactly as it sounded, a giant, floating, disembodied head with fiery eyes and tangled hair who floated through the air hunting for humans to devour. While the exact origins of the story are unknown, it's widely believed that the folklore derived from a betrayal of elders within an unknown tribe. As the story goes, there was a terrible famine, and the young people insisted that they should relocate to where there would be more. The elders, however, insisted they stay put, as the famine was actually a curse placed on them by their creator, and that it will follow them no matter where they are. Eventually, the disagreement got so out of hand that the young men killed the elders by decapitating them and throwing their heads into the nearby lake. But to their horror, the deceased came back to life, merging into one enormous head, seeking vengeance on the young men who killed them. In retaliation, the flying head took the lives of the entire tribe and feasted on their flesh. It's said that no man-made weapon can take the creatures down, and the only way to beat them is by tricking them into eating hot coals. I mean, if that's not terrifying, I don't know what is.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Predators. Legend goes that a group of online predators are using this game to get in contact with young children. Since the game has a messaging system, it allows these predators to disguise themselves as children and talk directly to young kids without their parents knowing. Apparently, there have been reports of these predators asking others personal information, questions, and encouraging them to do certain acts in their virtual bedrooms in Roblox. On top of that, these people are trying to gain the trust of children so that they can end up meeting with them outside of the game. But honestly, this is a risk that comes with any kid's platform with messaging systems. It's a really sad reality. Moving on to number 9, we have the leaked data. Legend goes that all the data that you were plugging into your Roblox account is not as private and protected as the site claims. In fact, it said that your personal data is being sold off to major companies or to people that just want to spy on you. But that's not all. Apparently, people have been hacking into users' computers and accessing their microphone and webcam. Then they are creepily spying on you as you play the game and, well, do whatever else you're doing. See, that's why I have something covering my computer's webcam, because I'm not taking any chances. Moving on to number 8, we have QA. This is one of the biggest urban legends to exist in the Roblox universe. Legend goes that while playing, users have gotten a message saying QA has entered the game. But whatever game that QA goes into will change. The graphics will go back to its original form and things will glitch. It said that QA was the second user to join Roblox. Now, apparently, QA did get banned, but people were still wondering what's up with this account. Some say that he is an admin that has access to specific game codes or can change the game's settings, while others believe he is a hacker. Making our way down the list at number 7, we have Smile or Die. So this legend goes that there are a bunch of Roblox users that have very disturbing profiles. On their page, all it says is smile, creepy, ... and then has a winky face, over and over again about 30 times. Then it says, hello, we are watching you, ha ha ha. Basically, if you come across this page, close out of it immediately, or else the user will apparently come for you. But it's not just one user. Multiple users have the same description on their page. Some say it's because they were hacked, others believe it's some weird Roblox cult. On one of the pages, it also says, violets are blue, your blood is red, your window was open, I'm under your bed. Coming in at number 6, we have Vault 8166. On November 15th, 2016, a user created a thread on the Roblox Talk subforum saying that they accidentally went into an unknown place while testing a teleporter in the game. This secret place was then referred to as Vault 8166. After word got out, the thread was taken down by Roblox moderators. But the mystery surrounding Vault 8166 remains. Now, a bunch of users have come forward detailing their experience in this area. One user was in the hallway of Vault 8166 when they came across a sign saying, warning, we are watching you. Then they encountered a weird exploiter avatar that was all black, had red fire around them, and was super skinny with large, long legs. This avatar came out from behind them and started running right at them. Then there was leaked footage of what is said to be a server room inside of Vault 8166. And there's a bunch of other leaked videos that are all pretty creepy and unusual. So pray you never encounter this vault area. It's where bad things apparently happen, and Roblox never wanted anyone to discover it in the first place. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with 4NN1. This legend revolves around a user with the name 4NN1, which apparently is short for Annie. But whatever you do not befriend this user and do not play with them. So legend begins when a player kept getting spammed with messages from the user 4NN1. She really wanted him to play with her and wouldn't leave him alone. He finally caved and joined her game, which was called 4NN1's Place. But while there, she started asking him some pretty dark and creepy questions like, have you ever eaten raw dog, and do you want to touch rusty nails? He blocked her, but this did nothing. She kept sending him messages and appearing in game lobbies. The legend ends with 4NN1 setting her place ablaze and the user entering the house to see a very disturbing, scary-looking, burning figure. In our fourth spot, we have the information leaker. Legend goes that there is a user that can find out your personal information and threaten to leak it. A user named Laura had this happen to her. A user started to message her and harass her. They somehow found out that she was from Canada, found out her full name and even her address. They then blackmailed this person saying that they will leak their address online or even come to her house. To this day, poor Laura doesn't know how they got hold of any of her personal information. Coming in our third spot, we have the Phantom Player. Legend goes that there is a mysterious phantom player that numerous people have encountered in this game. Apparently, users will meet this person, become friends, add each other, but then when the user searches for this player again, they can't find them. But that's not all. Then the user will receive a message saying, you just played with the Phantom. Is it a glitch? Is it a lost soul of a player who died? Who knows, but it's kind of creepy. Moving on to number 2, we have Rust. Legend goes that one day a player was playing Roblox when they came across a game called Rust on their favorites page, which was odd because apparently they don't favorite games. But anyways, they decided to check it out and play this game. When they entered the game, they claimed that it was quite weird. They got a bad feeling, so they left immediately. But that's when they got a message from someone named Rust_010. It read, Rust, and the subject read, Rusted Away. He ended up blocking this player, but when they went to a different game, Rust_010 also joined the game, and then everyone in the server was then teleported to his game. Then they were spammed by a bunch of friend requests, all from users whose names started with Rust_. Well, later they found out that Rust has some sort of script that can gather your personal information. Now apparently a bunch of other players have come in contact with this player, and if you do, never interact with them at all. Nobody knows their true intentions. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Cursed Account. This legend is about a dad who bought his daughter a used computer for her birthday. The dad, trying to save some coin, bought this computer off of an owner whose son died in a fire. It was the son's computer. Now, his daughter loved Roblox, so he downloaded the game for her and let her play. However, the dead boy was still signed into his Roblox account. But for some reason, his avatar was completely black. His username was Can'tSqueal999, and he had created a game called Help. Well, when they played this game, their entire screen went black, and all they could hear were screams. Later on, they found out that the boy had not died in a fire like the owner claimed, but instead was killed by him.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Evil Passenger. This is a recent story that happened in December that just passed, and man is it horrifying. A woman named Yolanda Dillon, who is 54 years old, was a 10-year employee at the New Orleans Police Department, and she earned extra money by driving for Uber and Uber Eats. On this fateful December day, Yolanda was driving for Uber when she picked up a ride who she drove from New Orleans to his motel in the suburbs. At 3 p.m. that day, Yolanda pulled up to his motel, but the passenger unfortunately didn't get out right away and instead attacked Yolanda, unfortunately taking her life. After this, the criminal just got out and went to his room, leaving Yolanda there alone. Thankfully, this passenger was quickly apprehended by the police and charged with his crimes. So far, through the investigation, it has become clear that Yolanda did not know this man at all, and he did not know her. They were total strangers, she just happened to pick him up that day. According to the sheriff, quote, his confession basically stated that he woke up yesterday morning and decided he was going to kill someone and decided that was going to be the day. It's a horrifying story with a tragic ending that really just shows an incredibly dark side to society. In our number 9 spot today, we have The Break-In. A TikTok posted last year in November by Gianna Rayo is a terrifying story of what happened to her after an Uber ride. Often we are quite trusting of those we request rides from, but not everyone deserves this trust. In her initial TikTok, she put the words, quote, "When you catch and identify the man who broke into your apartment as your Uber driver that dropped you off 45 minutes prior to the break-in by his fugly red pants on the Ring camera." Before she posted another video with the words, quote, "When you see your Uber driver from earlier in the night inside your apartment at 1:40 a.m. the next morning on your Ring camera." Basically, Gianna explains that she was dropped off in her Uber at about 12:50 a.m. and at the time, everything was fine. There wasn't anything concerning that happened on the ride at all. She and her boyfriend locked their door, made some food, and went to sleep. The next morning, however, she checked the footage of their Ring doorbell, which she explains that they like to do for some entertaining footage from when they were coming home from the night before. But that's when they noticed a man in their apartment at about 1:40 a.m. The footage, however, only shows him on the way out, not the way in. Shortly after this, she found that a screen in her living room window had been cut and a chair below it was now dirty. Of course, she reached out to both Uber and the police, who quickly started an investigation. In our number 8 spot today, we have the spree. Back in 2016, a Michigan Uber driver named Jason Brian Dalton was charged with taking the lives of 6 people after he went on an Uber killing spree. This story is honestly absolutely nuts. This guy essentially just drove from one target to another. He was just committing random acts of violence and shooting random people, but then also picking up and dropping off Uber riders in between. Like, could you possibly imagine? Basically, they say that he started at an apartment complex, took his crimes over to a car dealership where he took more lives, and then he went on over to a Cracker Barrel and continued his terrible crimes there. All the while, he just continued driving people around. In an insane turn of events, one of the riders that he picked up was only taking an Uber instead of walking because they were afraid of the active shooter that was on the loose. Little did they know, they would literally end up in his car. Thankfully, they actually weren't harmed. Jason was later arrested for his crimes, and it appears as though there wasn't really a motive for the crimes, as he didn't have any connection to any of the victims at all. But I'm pretty sure he told authorities that the devil told him to do it, so it's not looking good. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Stormy Night. This is a classic urban legend that I remember hearing many of times when I was a kid, but I'll be honest, the good old-fashioned version of this story involved a hitchhiker being picked up. Since hitchhiking isn't exactly as common as it once was, we're gonna give it a modern twist, and instead of a hitchhiker, this is going to be an Uber driver. This story starts off on an extremely stormy night. A man is driving for Uber, but because of the storm, it's just really not very busy. Of course, most people are staying inside, so he's shocked when he hears his phone go off and realizes he's got a ride. He of course heads to the pickup point, grabs the passenger, and the pair takes off. The passenger was just giving off weird vibes and was mostly silent for the ride, so the driver began asking him simple questions to get a conversation started and to try and get to know the passenger that he had just picked up. The rider gave mostly one-word responses and didn't give away much information about where he had been or really where he was going. As they drove, the radio was playing a news show. As the passenger had mentioned, he wasn't much of a music person, you know? Gotta adapt to the taste, trying to get those 5 stars. After several miles of travel, the news announcer on the radio said that there were reports of a patient escaping from a psychiatric institution. The passenger quickly asked to turn the channel, saying that he hated the news. The driver didn't reply to this, and the passenger picked up on what the driver must have been thinking and said, "Don't worry, I'm not the killer." The driver replied with, "No?" and then quickly corrected himself by saying, "Of course you aren't." The driver continued to pry and asked what the passenger did for a living. He revealed that he was a writer and was currently working on a book about a serial killer. Very convenient. The driver decided not to respond to this and just focus on the road and getting to the drop-off location. The driver turned the news channel back on, only to hear an announcement that stated that they were getting more information on the escaped patient. They said his name was Simon Hughes and that he is extremely dangerous and unpredictable. They said that the patient had escaped by pretending to be one of the hospital staff and that he stole a car and drove off. This prompted the passenger to ask the driver what he had said his name was. The driver responded with, "My name is Simon Hughes." Man, this is when I learned what a plot twist was. We really thought the passenger was the bad guy all along, but it turns out the driver is the one we needed to be cautious about. In our number 6 spot today, we have high beams. This is a classic driver's urban legend, and since it applies to all drivers, it applies to Uber drivers as well. The myth goes as follows. Essentially, you're driving home one night when you pass a car that has their high beams on. You wanted to let them know, so you give them a flick of your lights as an indication. Oh no, in this legend, You're officially screwed now. The car that passed you was actually being driven by someone who was in the process of joining a local gang, and in order for them to pass the final step, they now have to chase you down and kill you. It really is a classic legend that is said to be traced back to Montana in the early 80s, but it really picked up traction in the days of internet chainmail. Pass this on to 25 people in your contact list, or else you're gonna be cursed for the next 7 years. The good old days. Now, in this day and age, I guess those high beams are probably just someone with blinding LED lights on their car, so it's not good. In our number 5 spot today, we have check your back seat. Another classic driver's tale and a warning to always check your back seat. Legend goes that a woman was driving at night and she noticed that a car behind her was getting closer and closer. Before she knew it, this car was so close it was literally tailgating her, and it would also flash its lights at her. The woman is obviously freaked out by this, so the first chance she gets, she pulls into a gas station to try and get some help. As she parks, she runs out of the car and into the store, but not before the other car pulls up and the driver approaches her. What he says is not what she expected, however, as he explains that he has already called the cops because there is a killer in the backseat of her car, presumably lying and waiting for the right moment to strike. Thankfully, this person who was driving so close to her was making it so that the moment was never a good one to strike, and the woman lived to tell the tale. Since I heard this one as a kid, I will always check the backseat when I get in, you know, just in case. In our number 4 spot today, we have the chained car. This story is more about a car lover rather than a specific kind of driver, but if you were someone who used your car for work, I'd assume it would be a pretty important thing to you. This legend is about a man who really wants to keep his car safe, and to do this, he keeps it locked up as tight as possible. Of course, like any urban legend, there are some variations of this story based on who is telling it. In some versions, he puts a huge crazy chain on the car. In others, he continues getting more and more elaborate security systems. Either way, this car is safe and it is very secure. One day, the man leaves the house for a while without the car, but when he returns, something is seriously amiss. He finds his car and it's in the garage where he left it, but in this scenario, the car is parked the wrong way around and his security system has been disabled. The man is obviously shocked, but as he gets closer, he sees a note that reads, "If we wanted it, we'd take it." Ew, creepy. In our number 3 spot today, we have the back roads. This legend starts out as an Uber ride is taking a route through some more rural back roads. The passenger explained to the driver that they knew a shortcut, and while taking this shortcut, they have found themselves on a long stretch of road that has tall grass and crops on either side of it. As they drive along, about halfway through this long road, they see a car. The car is parked across 2 lanes, and all of the doors and the trunk are open. There are suitcases with clothes lying all about, and the strangest part of all is that there are 2 people lying in the road. Of course, the driver's immediate response is to get out and help the people in trouble, but when he looked down at his phone, he saw that he had no reception. That's when he notices that things are looking, well, staged. Did the passenger take him this way on purpose? As the passenger gets out of the car, the driver takes his chance. He quickly gets back in, drives around the scene, and puts the pedal to the metal. As he drives away, he looks in the rear view mirror and sees that these people that were lying in the middle of the road have now got up, and they are standing alongside the passenger, and suddenly dozens of people start appearing out from the grass. The driver got home, and when he researched the area, he was totally spooked to find that the area has a long history of people going missing. In our number 2 spot today, we have the mysterious passenger. So this is an urban legend that comes from Japan, and normally it has to do with a taxi driver, but for the sake of this video, we are switching it up to an Uber driver. Legend goes that a person who suddenly appears and calls an Uber might end up being something sinister. Usually if the driver pulls over for this mysterious person, they will get in, and they'll be requesting a ride to somewhere that the driver hasn't heard of before, but of course this passenger offers reassurance and help with directions. From there, once the driver agrees, the journey will take some time, with the driver getting further and further from the town or city they started off in. Eventually, the driver will likely turn around to take a peek at this passenger, and it's then that the driver will realize they've disappeared. Once the driver turns back around to look at the road, he'll realize that they're headed straight off of a cliff. Yeah, it's a dark one, and I'm not really entirely sure the moral of it at all. In our number 1 spot today, we have the self-driving Uber. Okay, less of an urban legend and more like a terrifying glimpse into the future, we have to talk about self-driving cars and Uber. The issue isn't with the self-driving per se. I mean, there are plenty of reasons why this step makes sense, why it could be exceptionally helpful, and why there are people who are clearly on board with the idea. But there are also some things that are rightfully a major cause for concern. Not only are people rightfully concerned about robots coming in and putting people out of work, but people are also worried about the flaws of AI-driven cars. Back in March of 2018 in Arizona, there was a horrific accident that involved a self-driving Uber. 49-year-old Elaine Herzberg was crossing the street at an intersection when she was struck by a self-driving Uber and later succumbed to her injuries. Although the car was driving itself, there was still a driver behind the wheel as well. One of the most debated and truly one of the biggest questions surrounding this is an ethical one. Like, will a self-driving car prioritize its driver or passenger or operator or whatever you want to call them over other road users? And not just over other road users, but at the expense of other road users. Also, what happens when the car is left with the decision to either collide with one person or another? A car couldn't take into account any sort of extenuating circumstances like a human could. All in all, I'm not saying self-driving cars are bad, it's just a little food for thought.